Okay. The studio started in 1986, and it's been based in Tokyo, Kichijoji, where many animation studios are. And our main focus is feature-length animated films. And these are the photos of the studio I just took this morning. The entrance, these are also entrance. And this photo is our biggest meeting room. And I'd like to introduce a little bit about Eiko Tanaka. She's the founder and the producer at STUDIO4 C. So she started her career in the industry at Nippon Animation. She's a producer of Around the World with Willy Fork and Alice in Wonderland and many other TV shows. And then she worked at Studio Ghibli, and she was a line producer at titles such as My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service. And then she founded the STUDIO4 C. And these are the titles that she produced. Excuse me. So she's basically the producer of all the titles that we produce at STUDIO4 C. And Pupil of Chimnita that you can see at the left is the latest film that is in cinemas in Japan right now. And Children of the Sea is the one that was released in 2019 in Japan. And it took more than 5 years to create this film. And we'd like to talk about this film a lot after, when we bring the guests in. And here are slides of awards and achievements. I would like to say that our films have been highly acclaimed internationally, not only within Japan. And Ayumu Watanabe, he's a director of the film Children of the Sea, and it's his fourth feature-length film, actually. He does a lot of TV shows as well, and some of the shows that is popular in Japan is Doraemon. Not sure if the viewers know a lot about Doraemon, but this blue robot is Doraemon. And well, he is very good at describing emotions of characters. And he's done a great job in Children of the Sea as well. I translated his storyboard of Children of the Sea, and what amazed me was like every frame had a meaning and the reason why he put it there. Yeah. So I would like to move on to a short introduction of each titles that are in the exhibition at the gallery. So Children of the Sea, so I'd like to mention about this film is that the music is done by Joe Hisaishi. And Joe Hisaishi has done a lot of films from Studio Ghibli, and it added much depth in the film. And I hope you can all watch the film after the panel or the exhibition. It's a great film. And Genius Party and Genius Party Beyond, these are compilation of shorts. So skillful creators in Japan gathered at STUDIO4 C, and we only had one theme. It was to create what creators want to create with the meaning of animation. So we didn't, there's no limitation, and you can see variety of different talents in these two films. We have some drawings from Genius Party, Happy Machine, which is directed by Masaaki Osa. And Mind Game, this is Yuasa Masaaki's directorial debut. And Ben, can you share any thoughts about the film?
Yeah. I remember watching this film quite a few years ago, but it was like nothing I've ever really seen in terms of animation. It was really pushing the envelope, even at that time, I think, combining all these different effects and the style of animation. Even for Japanese animation, it was very sort of avant-garde is probably the best word I can think of it. And that word comes to mind for a lot of other of Studio 4 C's films. And I've always found it interesting how Studio 4 C was sort of, it felt like they were trying to do different things. It felt like they were trying to be a little more avant-garde and sort of push the envelope of animation. So yeah, this film had a really had a lot of strong effect on me when I saw it.
Thank you. This is actually my personal favorite film among Studio 4 C films. And Eternal Family, this is one of the older titles that we put in the gallery. It's directed by Koji Morimoto. And it's a short film and 29 minutes, but it's actually separated into 53 episodes. One episode has 30 seconds. It's a quite interesting in format. I hope you will have a chance to watch it. And extra, this is another film that is directed by Koji Morimoto. And Ben, can you share any comments on that?
Sure. Yeah, this is probably, I want to say, one of my first introductions to the studio, which in a weird way led us to today. Yeah, watching this in high school, and it was one of the few, and anime wasn't as big back then. I mean, it was big among a certain crowd, but this was playing on MTV, and it was just something that, yeah, it really just blew my mind. I mean, this and Akira was extremely influential to me at a young age. But I think even back then, the way they did 3D in this music video, and some of the effects felt pretty innovative at that time. So this is another example of one of the studio trying to sort of push the envelope. But yeah, this made me a Koji Morimoto fan without realizing it. And I think years later, when I saw his work at an art museum, I think it was in LA. I believe it was called the Super Flat Show. It was I think it was curated by it may have been curated by Takashi Murakami. I know Takashi Murakami was one of the artists in it, but yes. Koji Morimoto also had a bunch of work in it, and seeing his originals just blew my mind. And then that's when I kind of started to learn more and more about his work. And when we first started Nucleus, we carried the book Orange, and we sold many of those for many years. But yeah, that's sort of like my background and my introduction into 4C, as well as this, as well as Koji and this video.
Thank you. I think we had a good job keeping drawings from these older titles. It's been a long time since it's produced, but it's, those pieces are still in good condition, right?
Yeah, we're very lucky to have them in the show. I was really, I was amazed when it's like, wow, we get to actually display these and allow people to own part of these. So
that was my quick introduction. Thank you. And now,
yeah, me and Charles will take it over for a brief moment while Yumi goes to get our guests for today. Let's see.
You have to stop sharing the screen.
Oh yeah, Yumi, can you stop sharing the screen for a second? Okay. All right, Charles.
I'm here.
Take it. So what is your I guess what is your introduction into Studio4 C? How did you get introduced to their work?
Well, I don't remember a formal introduction. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I don't remember a formal introduction. I do remember writing a long article for the LA Times about the animatrix, which was a really interesting example of the kind of cross-specific cross-pollination that we're getting not only in live action, where films like Ghost in the Shell influences the Matrix in turn spawns the Animatrix, which are major Japanese animators dealing with characters and ideas from the Matrix films. So it's a back and forth process. And then a few years ago, MIT was doing a series of study guides on Japanese features, the idea that it would be something that colleges could present. And we did Whisper of the Heart, and we did Tekon Concrete, another Studio4 C result based on a very popular, very highly regarded manga. So those, I guess, are my strongest links to the studio. And as for Masaki Yuasa's work, even back then, he's regarded as the leader of sort of the if there's such a thing as counterculture anime or irreverent anime or something. He's very much the leader of that movement, not only with the film we were looking at the posters for or an artwork from, but for Lou Over the Garden Wall and The Night is Short, Walk On Girl, and Ride Your Wave that's just out this year in this country and qualifies for the Oscars. So he's become very much, again, kind of a counterculture leader of anime, and that even since then, his aesthetic hasn't really changed that much. That you can see not only anime influences in his work, but Yellow Submarine and MC Escher and Tex Avery, and a very eclectic source material that he uses to infuse his animation with something very different and very personal.
Yeah. All right. I think our guests are here. But while they're preparing, yeah, I think it's really interesting you brought up the international crossover things. I think it seems to me that is a lot of what Studio4 C does. I mean, a lot of Japanese animation studios in general. It seems like the animation is very, very, there's a lot of cross, pollination with artists and with.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at how many anime features show the influence of Blade Runner.
Yeah. And
then in turn, it goes back and forth. Attempts to make Westerns films based on anime have generally been pretty disastrous, with the Astro Boy and Speed Racer and Ghost in the Shell. It's more interesting to see the more interesting cross-pollination is taking place among individual artists rather than trying to do remakes.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's almost like Japan taking something from influence from the US and then US reintroducing it back into the US. I feel like there's like too many, they've eaten the same pie too many times or something. But yeah.
Well, again, what I find interesting is seeing the influences and counter influences. Again, okay, Blade Runner, which had a very Japanese infused aesthetic to its dystopic vision of future LA, that influences Akira and Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell is a major influence on the Matrix. The Matrix spawns the Animatrix. So you get people in Hollywood and in Tokyo really influencing each other. And of course, it also applies in animation. Watch the first How to Train Your Dragon movie, the Forbidden Friendship sequence where Hiccup and Toothless become friends and recognize each other as an ally, and then watch Totoro. And the influences are very clear. It's also true on a number of other animated films from Pixar, from DreamWorks, from Disney. You see Miyazaki and other Japanese directors influencing American animation and back and forth. So it's very much a dialogue and an ongoing one, and I think a vital one that is kind of exciting artists on both sides of the Pacific and certainly audiences.
I much agree. All right, let's see here. Ayumi, are we ready?
Yep, we are.
Okay.
All right, well then please join us in welcoming Eiko Tanaka, who is the CEO and founder of STUDIO4 C, and Ayumu Watanabe, the director of Children of the Sea. Hajimemashite, dozo yoroshiku. Tanaka-san.
よろしくお願いいたします。よろしくお願いします。
It's an occupational hazard these days. Tanaka-san, we see very few women directing animated films in Japan as in America, but we're seeing an increasing number of producers. What's always been a very male-dominated art form changing? Is there a greater place for women now? I could name a half a dozen women in this country whose films have made over $3 billion. So is this where women are finding a place in this industry?
いいですかね。
はい。
今後は女性のプロデューサーのみならず、女性の監督もどんどん台頭してくるというふうに考えています。なぜ今まで女性の社会進出が遅れたかというと、やはり結婚とか出産とか育児によるその仕事の中断が問題視されてたからだというふうに思います。日本も、約何十年前でしたっけ、ウーマンズ・リベレーションというアメリカからの大きな波の後に、その男女雇用均等法という、行政が敷かれて、そしてその女性の、社会への参加というものが非常に、顕著になってきました。で、男性の理解も非常に、多く出てきたので、女性が仕事を継続できるという環境が整ってきたなというふうに考えています。なので、今後、プロデューサーだけでなくアニメーターも監督もそのアニメーションに関わるすべての人たちの進出が、行われるというふうに考えています。
Okay, well, these were big words. I will try. So she believes that we will be seeing more and more, not only producers but directors, female directors, female producers,
And animators also.
and animators too. The reason that women are sort of behind to be active in the industry, or like marriage life, raising kids, and all sorts of things. But well, women's
Women's liberation, when it starts from
well, I'm sorry.
America.
I'm sorry. So what she was saying that influenced by the movements in the States, Japan also had a good influence in that direction, and we had an act that passed the Congress that allows that is supposed to provide fair, what's the word? Sorry.
Equal pay.
Yeah, equal pay and
Good job.
working opportunities, and more and more men started to understand, the importance and the importance of women working in the industry and the society. So これも足すってことですか？
私ここだと言います。
なるほど、わかりました。So she believes, more and more women should should have more opportunities.
ちょっと簡単にこれから言いますね。
はい、お願いします。
女性のしかも私が思うに実は女性の方が社会に甘えていなくて持続力もあって責任感もあってそしてとても強いというふうに考えています。なのでいずれ女性の方が男性よりも社会に多く、進出してくるのではないか、特にアニメーションという世界ではそのようなことが起きるのではないかと思っております。男性の方頑張ってください。はい。
So she thinks like women are more 社会に甘えていないって。more
どうぞ助けてあげてください。
What do you say?
Okay, I'll help for translation. What she want to say is she believes that the woman has more. Well, sorry to men, but we want to just make a strongness of the woman's power. That she believes that the woman has more continuous or responsible to the society. So that really comes to the animation industry in the future. So she hopes that the animation industry will have more females working opportunity.
Yes. Well, 70, 80 years ago, 1941, Walt Disney said that he believed women artists would bring something to animate men either wouldn't or couldn't someday. So perhaps you're finally realizing that vision. A question for both Tanaka-san and Watanabe-san is, what first led you to Daisuke Igarashi's manga of Children of the Sea? It's I've looked at the book, publisher in English. It's a very unusual manga. It's not sort of what we generally think of as manga looking like or being about in this country. So what first drew you to it and the idea of filming it?
この五十嵐さんという漫画家はものすごいその繊細高い画力とこの繊細な描写でとても得意なアニメーターごめんなさい漫画家なので彼の作品をアニメーションにできるということ自体、本当夢のようなことだというふうに思っています。この作品会場の子どもが漫画として漫画雑誌に連載を始めた時からもちろん注目をしていたんですけれどもでも漫画が完成してもう当時絶対にこの作品はアニメ化はできないなというふうに感じたほど素晴らしい作品でした。
そこまでいいですか？So this manga artist Daisuke Igarashi, he has very distinctive style with high talent in the drawing and the very detailed descriptions, and so making his manga into animation itself is like a big dream. Will dream come true to us, and so the time when the comics, his Children of the Sea was published in the magazine. She has been following the title since then, and then the total 5 volume of comics was completed. And then what she thought was that it's impossible to make it in animation. So that was her thought.
I'm curious, did Watanabe-san also follow the manga? And what were his thoughts? Or did he, when he started reading it, did he
Okay.
film it or see it as a film?
同じ質問なんですけれども。
はい、ありがとうございます。
はい。
なので、そうですね、最初の。
僕はですね、たまたま偶然 本屋さんでですね、彼の短編集を手に取ったのが、彼の作品と出会った、最初です。
So first time that Watanabe-san encountered this artist's works was when he went to a bookstore. He found a book, book of short stories, short episodes.
話しっぱなしね。
It's called 話しっぱなし。
日常の中のささやかな出来事を非常にドラマチックに書いた、大変優れた。僕は非常にそれが一生にまず最初に残ってます。
And that book, well, the artist described the normal things that happens in the daily life very dramatically, and that was very impressive to Watanabe-san back then.
で、その後、彼は連載をするようになって、レルフォレストとか、なんだっけ、魔女の先だと思います。で、怪獣の子供というふうにこう行き着くわけです。まだその当時はアニメーションするなってことは夢にも思ってませんでしたけど。
And then Igarashi-san continued his work to Rainforest and the Witch, and then Children of the Sea. And back then, he never thought of making these titles in animation.
それは非常にその火力が高くて再現することが難しいだろう。
That was because the author's talent in the drawing, description, it was very high skilled, and he thought that it's impossible to recreate the world in animation.
田中プロデューサーから怪獣の子供を映画化したいって聞いたときには、なんと無謀なことを思ったのが最初の印象です。
So first time he heard from Eiko that she wanted to make animated film out of Children of the Sea, his thought was, what a reckless challenge. Yeah.
I'm curious though, Watanabe-san is, I believe, best known for his work with Doraemon, which is of course such a well-known character that, you know, you don't need to introduce it. Everybody knows Doraemon and his family. Whereas in Children of the Sea, you're dealing with characters who are new that the audience probably doesn't know. And what kind of challenge did that present, switching, you know, someone who's so familiar to that kind of character to one who isn't so well known, and having to introduce them and kind of teach the audience who they are in the early part of the film.
同じなんですけど、ドラえもんのようなすごくそのキャラクター自体を紹介する必要のないような有名なキャラクターから、今回のような作品にするにあたって何かチャレンジはありましたでしょうか？
そうですね。まあ映画をまず作るってことは常にチャレンジだってことです。
Well, first of all, creating a film itself is always a challenge.
で、それがその手掛ける作品にポピュラリティがあろうがなかろうが、初めてそれに対する人に向けてはですね、やはり分かりやすく作るっていう、まあ丁寧にアプローチするってことが大事だと思います。
And whether it's known or it has popularity, it is important to carefully craft the film for anyone who encounters the film or characters for the first time.
ただ、そうですね。作品のその特徴というのは残さなきゃいけないので、そういう部分では原作の持つ魅力というのをそがないようにするということが、まあ、チャレンジと言えるかもしれませんね。
And it is important to keep the characteristic of the original comics. So keeping the appealing elements in the original comics in the film is one of the challenges, I would think.
A question for Tanaka-san, although Watanabe-san is also welcome to join in, is that at 111 minutes, STUDIO4 C is much longer than almost any American feature that tend to come in, maybe 79, 82 minutes, something like that. And I'm wondering about the freedom that the artists in Japan seem to have to make a work that long, or something as short as the film that you were talking about earlier in your introduction, that they don't seem as restricted in what they can do in terms of time. And I guess it's more dictated by the story and what they feel it requires.
アニメーションっていうのは基本的に子どもが対象っていうことで、その90分よりも、長いと子どもが飽きてしまうということが基本に考えられています。それと一方では映画というのはなんとなく120分以内という制約があります。それは120分を超えると映画館で1日に6回以上上映ができないという制約から来るものです。なので漠然とですが90分から120分以内という制約の中で作るという自由を持っているというふうに考えています。で、
So animation itself is basically around, well, we think it should be around 90 minutes tops, because that's how much children can concentrate on film. Whereas film in Japan, we tend to keep it under 120 minutes. And that is because, well, in cinemas, and in order to put one film 6 times in one cinema, 120 minutes is the maximum length that we can do. So basically, we have sort of a freedom to make a film from 90 to 120. Like somewhere between that length. Yeah.
でも私たち映画を作るときにはその対象を子どもというふうに限定せず大人も楽しめる作品として考えているので90分よりも長い尺になることが多いです。でも私の希望としてはやはり90分以内で作ることが制作費もミニマムに抑えられるのでそれを希望してますが、今回渡辺さんはとても長い尺で、作ってたくさんのお金がかかってしまいました。
Okay, so as far as our animated films, we usually don't limit our audience to children, and we would also like adults to watch the film. So that's why we have about 90 to 120 minutes length. But personally, Tanaka-san wants to make a film for family kids that is under 90 minutes. That is more friendly in their budget-wise. However, well, Watanabe-san this time wanted to make a big film, which is 111 minutes for wider audience. Yeah.
Does Watanabe-san have anything he wants to add?
僕は非常に欲張りなので、どうせ書くならすべてのドラマを書き尽くしたい。ただもうその一連です。
Well, he wanted to. 欲張りって何ですかね。He wanted to, well, do his best in creating, animating what Daisuke Igarashi's comics, and he wanted to recreate every frame in animation. So that's how well it got long and big budget.
90分に収めるのであれば、パート2とかパート3とか3部作にして、どの道お金はかかると思います、ね。
So if we were to make Children of the Sea into 90 minutes, then he would have to make second, like part 2, part 3, and it's gonna cost a big budget anyways.
パート3まで終わらずに終わってよかったですね。
And Eiko is glad that we didn't have to go through all the way to part 2, part 3 with even bigger budget.
Well, I'm curious, can they both talk a little bit about how producer and directors work together in Japan? Does Tanaka-san come to him and say, Umi and Sora can't have 500 fish in this scene, we can only afford 100, or you have to do this, or does she just say, we'll find the money somehow if you think it'll look really good? I'd like to know a little bit about how they work together on as they're making the film.
作品制作の時に田中さんと渡辺さんどういうふうに実際お仕事されたんですかっていうのが、つまりその海と空で500シーンも使ったらそんな予算がないから100円のためなきゃとか、なんだろう、それやったらすごくうまくいくだろうから、じゃあお金を見つけてくれよとか、なんかそういう意味でどういう。
彼が考えた通りに渡辺さんはものすごい長い絵コンテを、書かれたのでそれはもう120分を優に超えるすごい量だったので、そこは渡辺さんと何回もお話をして、そしてそれでも111分っていう長さに縮めさせていただきました。でもやはりものすごい作業量とものすごい画力が要求されるために、もっともっとたくさんのお金が必要になり、私はそれを集めるために、世界中奔走しました。
Well, so Watanabe-san did draw a very long storyboard at first, and it was much longer than 120 minutes. So
多分40分ぐらいあったんじゃないですかね。1時間40分ぐらいあったんじゃないかしら。Maybe
それって200分 probably like around 200 minutes. So Tanaka-san asked Watanabe-san, well, they discussed and make it shorter, and that ended up in 111 minutes. But not only about the length of the film, the work that had to be put into the animation with so much work, and so she eventually had to go everywhere, all around the world for financing the film.
Well, if it's any consolation, one of the old artists said, if they had filmed everything they storyboarded for Pinocchio, the film would have run for 2 days. That it would have been like 48 hours worth of storyboards. But does Watanabe-san have anything to add about that?
今のピノキオの絵コンテを全部アニメにしてたら丸2日分ぐらいあったらしいということだったんですけど、渡辺さんの方で何か今の田中さんのお話に付け加えたいこと。
いや実現するしないは別として、自分に思ったことはすべて書こうと思って、コンテを書きました。
So his thought was whether or not it's gonna be realized. He wanted to put everything into a storyboard when he started working on it. Yeah.
もちろんそこでは予算を戦えているんですね。おそらく最初にもうそれがないということも覚悟の上です。
And while he's drawing storyboards, he knew that some part of it would have to be removed due to the budget and time. But anyway, he put everything into the storyboard.
Of course, Joe Hisaishi is very well known in this country because of his work with Miyazaki-san. And some of the most striking scenes in Children of the Sea take place with no dialogue, just images and music. And can they talk a little bit about how they worked with him? Did they bring storyboards and say, we want this kind of music? Or did Hisaishi-san look at it and say, oh, if you're doing this, this is the kind of melody that might carry it? How did that, how did they work back and forth on those sequences?
渡辺さんですね。はい。今のところ、この須田井さんとどのような形で作品を作りされたのでしょうか。
そうですね。絵コンテを書きながら、まあ、この作品にとっての音楽は、どういうものが一番ふさわしいのかというのを考えながら作業しています。
First of all, while he was working on storyboard, he was thinking about what background music could be the best fit for this film.
で、まあ、僕の中でですね、次第に、まあ、あるイメージが浮かび上がり、そのイメージというのは実は私の元より憧れであった久石譲さんという方にお願いができたらベストだなということで作業をしておりました。
And while he's working, he had this image for the background music, which is the composer Joe Hisaishi, whom he had admired for a long time.
さまざまなプロセスを経て、本当にそれがこう実現したということで、まあ、僕は非常にどういうオーダーをするかという前に非常に興奮をしていました。
So before working with him in the details, like after so much process, like procedures and talking with people, having him as a composer of the film was very exciting.
で、まあ、先んじて、その、久石さんの方に絵コンテを送りましてですね。で、原作も読みになって、彼がどのようなその音楽を、ね、アプローチをしてくださるのかというのを楽しみにしていました。
So first we sent him the storyboard and the original comics, and then we waited for him to like what he would think of the film and what kind of image he would have for the film.
で、まあ、僕もその久石さんの音楽をお願いするのが、あるスタイルでぜひお願いしたいと思っていたわけです。
And there's a certain kind of style that Watanabe-san wanted Hisaishi-san to work on.
で、最初の打ち合わせの席についてですね、ほぼ同時にこの作品に適合する音楽のスタイルは何かという話になったんです。
And once they sat down on the table and started discussing about the style for this, the music style for this film.
で、お互い共通に思ってたスタイルはミニマムですね。
And one certain style that both thought in mind was a minimal style of music.
ですから本当に偶然の一致偶然の一致でですね、もうなんていうんですかね、打ち合わせがいらないというか、もうそのスタイルを選びにベストだっていうことですね。まあ本当にちょっと面白かったんですけどね。
So that was a surprising surprise that Hisaishi-san and Watanabe-san had the same thoughts on the style of the music, and they didn't really have to discuss.
私いいですか。
どうぞ。
久石さんはもう宮崎さんの作品しかやらないって決めてたんです、実は。
アニメーションってことですね。
はい、もちろんです。で、そこに、どうしても私、隣のトトロという作品と、魔女の宅急便という作品で、久石さんにお願いしたことがありまして、何としても私の作品で久石さんに音楽をやっていただきたいということで、3年間オファーをし続けました。でやっと彼が、このコンペに渡辺さんが声を入れてくれたものを見て、そして素晴らしい作品だということに、分かってくださって、この作品の音楽をしてくれることに決まったんです。これは素晴らしい、成果だというふうに思っています。
So actually, Hayao Miyazaki, Joe Hisaishi, he was very loyal to Hayao Miyazaki, and he has never made any music for animation film other than Hayao Miyazaki until Children of the Sea. So as a line producer of Totoro My Neighbor and Kiki's Delivery Service, and the experience that Eiko's working together with Joe Hisaishi, she really wanted Joe Hisaishi to work on the music. And so she had 3 years. She kept offering him. And yeah, it took 3 years for him. And then she showed storyboard
With Ayumu's voice.
Yes, voice.
with Ayumu's voice. And then Joe Hisaishi well understood how incredible
Amazing film.
the film will be.
Yes.
And then finally took the offer. So Eiko thinks that it is one of the biggest achievements in this film. Yeah.
Excuse me, a minute ago, Tanaka-san said that she had to go all around to get financing for the film because it was so long. I'm curious, how important does have foreign releases for America and other parts of the world become when she has to budget a film? Is that becoming a more important part of the revenue that they calculate, or does the film have to do well in Japan and then anything else is just sort of extra? How important has that market become in the conception of the film?
少し前に田中さんがその資金調達で世界中回ったっておっしゃっていましたけれども、そのアメリカとか、海外での、リリースの売り上げとか、それからそこでのポピュラリティみたいなものっていうのが、制作する上でのどれぐらい重要な要素になってますか？
そうですね。いろんな映画祭やマーケットに行きまして、でこの作品のそのショートフィルムを紹介して、でこの作品がそれぞれの国のそれぞれのそういう担当者の方に非常に褒めてもらえたこと、もしくはその期待されたこと、このことがやはり自分たちがこの作品を作る自信につながりました。
So we brought a short clip from the film to festivals and markets before the release of the film, and we got and the clip was very well received, and the expectation was very high for the film, but it got us a confidence in creating this film.
あと何て言ってるんだろう。
なので、その実際その海外での公開の実際の収益予測とかっていうのはどのぐらい重要性がありますか？
ですね。この作品日本でのもう国際共同制作という政府の支援の認定も得まして、したがって日本で、制作委員会というコミュニティを作って資金調達をするのですが、その時にもそこへの 海外でのしっかりと評価、日本での評価の政府の支援、こういったもので、このフィルムに対するクオリティを保証してくれたために資金の調達がしやすくなったというふうに考えています。
海外からの資金調達がってことですね。
そうですね。
And this film also got a grant from the co-production grant from the government, Japanese government, and when we financed the film, with this grant sort of guarantees the quality of the film, and it made it easier to finance the film.
でもまあ、実際にはなかなか資金調達というところまではいかずに、作品が完成してからそのセールを行うという形に、なってます、実際にはね。で、そういう意味で言うと、スタジオ&Cがこの作品にかなりのパーセンテージの出資をして作り上げたというところも大きいですね。実際にはなかなかそこまで資金調達というのは難しいので、自分たちでしっかりとファイナンスをして作り上げたということではということですね。はい。
Well, at the end of the day, it's not easy to actually raise financing outside of Japan, and so すみません。
実際にはだから、そのいくつかの海外からのファイナンシングと、政府の支援と、それからそのプリセールという形での海外のマーケット、それと、自分たちがこの作品を作るということで、自分たちでファイナンシングをした部分が大きいです。
資金調達、資金調達ができた理由ってことですね。
そうです。
はいはいはい。So, well, so basically, the financing was, well, so we got the grant from the government and several investment from overseas partners, and then we got partners in Japan, within Japan, which we co-invest in the film. Plus, we also, studio itself also invested in the film, to complete the finance for the film.
At the same time, can we ask Watanabe-san, does knowing there will be, when he thinks about, he's making the film, is he thinking of a Japanese audience? Is he thinking of an international audience? Or is he just, how does that affect his ideas about the film and how he treats the characters in the story?
作品作りをする上で、これですね、日本の観客を意識されますか、海外の観客を意識されたのでしょうか。それに関して作品作りをする上でどんな影響があったでしょうか。
そうですね。この作品に限ってかどうかわからないんですけども、あまりそうですね、日本とか海外とかというよりは、まずこの作品を広く示したいという欲求の方が強かったと思います。
So what he was thinking was not certain target, like whether it's Japanese or overseas audience. What he wanted to achieve is to get the film well distributed, well known, and watched by many people.
作品そのものがですね、日本というのを特定しないような、非常にオーラルつけるか持っていたの理由があります。
長めに話して
もうちょっと大丈夫です。
そうですか。でもいいですよ。
はい。And one of the reason that he thought that way was probably because the original comic has a wider world view, not only within Japan, but it has more ethnicity and in terms of locations, it has a lot of elements outside of Japan.
ただもちろんその映画というものですから、世界のどこに持っていっても、楽しんでもらえるようにしたいという思いを持っていたと思います。
And of course, we're making a film, so he wanted to make the film that can be enjoyed everywhere in the world.
ですから、日本が特有のものを描けるということでもなければ、外国に迎合するために何かをしたというわけでなので、その適合する部分も違う部分も楽しんでもらいたいというのも同時に込めます。
So his thought was not about creating something targeted for Japanese, nor not making something that can definitely reach people outside of Japan. He, took a middle path. It can be both, and it has both elements. Yeah.
ですので、その違和感、海外の方にね、違和感を持っていただけたら、それはそれでとても嬉しい。
違和感って言い換えると何かありますかね。違いですね。
日本さを感じてくれてもいい。
So he thinks it's good if audience has some kind of Japanese sense, like something that they don't know. That's good too.
Some of the most striking moments in the film are combinations of drawn animation and computer graphics. And I'm curious, Watanabe-san's thoughts, what artistic and technical challenges did this pose? And for Tanaka-san, does combining the two medium increase the budget and the cost of the film, having to coordinate the different crews and so forth?
渡辺さん、田中さんにそれぞれ質問なんですけれども、その手書きと CG の要素を融合させたということで、ドラマチックなシーンがいくつもありましたけれども、その技術的な面で、そこで、チャレンジがありましたかっていうところと、ところで。
そうですね。まずとてもその表現として、コンピューターグラフィックスと、手書きの文章というのは、融合するのがまず根本的に難しいことですよね。ですので、いかに一つの目標に向かって、どういう作業を経て強くいけるかという、ディスカッションその方がまず、チャレンジというか、チャレンジの入り口ということで、スタートを苦しみましたね。
So combining CGI and hand-drawn animations itself is very difficult. So the discussion between the creators and finding a way to well combine the arts, it was very difficult at the beginning.
結局ですね、我々ね、そういうののスタッフを導いたのは、やはりこんな絵にしたい。完成形ですね。高い次元での完成形というものが、主要としてあったので、それに対してどういうふうに向かっていくかということで、それぞれのパートが、セクションですね、お互いが歩み寄るという形が、それを乗り越えた先にできていったということですね。
What made it possible to combine arts and make the film was the final image of each scene. We had a perfect image of what we want to achieve, and that made creators unite and work together to make, like each section, creators worked Or, yeah, or hard. Yeah, to combine. Yeah.
To make it happen.
ですから、CG の利点という点であったかというと、ほぼ CG もですね、一枚一枚手書きのようにレタッチをしたりしてますので、なぜ CG かとか、なぜ書くのかっていうことをそれぞれのセクションですね、アニメーションのために取り直したという、チャレンジというよりは、それの新しさというよりですね、むしろ、根源的なものですね、最もそのベーシックなものに立ち返るという、ちょっと不思議な現象が各セクションを取っているような気がします。
So if you ask about advantage of having a CGI, actually, in many scenes we had to make tweaks every frame, even it's made in CGI. So it's not about it. Maybe it's not a new technique. Like we had to went back to the basics, creating every frame. Yeah.
そうですね。つまりハンドドローイングとハンドドローイング、鉛筆という道具とパソコンという道具を使ったというだけであって、作品を作るという2種類の違う道具を使ったということだけだというふうに思いますね。で、それはやはり、作画とそれから CGI という2つの作業をしたことによって費用は2倍かかりました。
Okay. So she added that, we eventually, so what we did was to use two different tools, pencils and computer, to achieve the film. But by using both hand-drawn animation and CGI animation, the budget was double.
で、さらにそれを、作画監督と CGI 監督がチェックするという作業をすることになりますので、簡単に言って4倍かかることになります。
And additionally, each frames were reviewed by animation director and CGI director. So
さらに期間も長くなるのでね、4倍かかります。
So we needed more time, schedule-wise, and so she says the budget was actually 4 times more than usual animation production.
A last question for Tanaka-san. In America, we love Japanese animation as it continues the drawn tradition that very few people in this country do anymore. Yet we've just seen 2 fully CG films from Japan come out, the Lupin III and Earwig and the Witch. Does she see drawn animation continuing? And can we still look to Japan for that? Or does she see the industry shifting to computer animation?
いや、そうですね。かなり日本も2D のアニメーションスタイルからその 3D のアニメーションスタイルに変わってきています。3D のアニメーションスタイルなんですが、その 3D も線をしっかりと残して、そして動きも日本人が、作画で獲得した技術のリミテッドアニメーションというものを 3D の中に取り入れた日本独自の発達の仕方をしてきていると思います。
So in terms of the animation production style, Eiko sees the shift from 2D to 3D CGI animation. However, the way Japanese animation industry do it is limited animation, which we got the skill from the drawing animation, and then and the 3D, like the description of 3D CGI is also very unique to Japanese animation industry, which is
Limited. So with a line, so, not puppet.
Hi.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we called Japanese limited style, limited animation style. Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time, as remember there is a huge time difference for our guests. So we'd like to thank Inaguchi-san, Tanaka-san, and Watanabe-san for being so gracious and taking their time to talk with us, and to Ben for hosting us. So domo arigatou gozaimashita.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.